In 2020, during COVID, my brother Jan Fredrik and I decided it was time for some discovery of our own country, Norway. We decided to drive my electric car to Andøya, where I had been a conscript in the Norwegian Air Force 27 years earlier. But because I was there in the winter, the sun had been below the horizon the whole time I was there. Inspired by a television show made by Alex Rosén and Aune Sand, we wanted to go back to Bleik on the island to see how beautiful it was with our own eyes in daylight. When that plan was set, we decided to go all the way to the top of Europe, Nordkapp, 71 degrees north, since we already was halfway there when we reached Andøya. 71 grader nord quickly became 71 grader bror, and this is what we call the two of us brothers when we have our road trips. In 2023, Jan Fredrik bought a motorbike in the US and another one in 2024. And then it was time for 71 grader bror to go west. The first day of our trip to the US started early and dramatic. On our way to the airport, we suddenly came to a section of the motorway with a thin film of ice on it. There were cars everywhere, but thanks to Jan Fredrik's reaction and all his safety systems, we somehow avoided them all and got safely to the airport. Now we could start the flights to get there. We checked in our panniers and headed to the lounge. It was a bit early for alcohol though, but we were just fine with some orange juice. The first flight went to Zurich and we had our breakfast aboard with an amazing views over the Swiss Alps. When we landed, we headed to the lounge where we took our first beer for the day before embarking our last flight with Swiss. Thanks to our bonus points, we flew very comfortable to Montreal. Since I had never been to Canada, we had to put our feet on the ground. The last flight put us back down to earth, flying in normal seats. When we landed in Dallas, we picked up a rental car and drove past Dealey Plaza to check out the site of the Kennedy assassination. Then we drove off to Round Rock, where we spent the little that was left of the night. Early in the morning the next day, we drove to Austin, where the bikes had been stored in our friend Courtney's garage since March. Unfortunately, the battery on one of the bikes was flat, so we had to get a new one before the adventure could properly begin. After fixing the bike, we had a nice Mexican lunch, and then we were on the road heading for Frederiksberg. On the way, we stopped at an old general store before we rode the last bit to Katie and DJ's ranch. We had been invited to Katie, who has Norwegian heritage, for a beer and coffee. Since we were so delayed, it had to be beer. children formed an enthusiastic welcome committee, and we came. We also got pretty close to the longhorns, and that was really interesting. They were huge. And a bit slimy. Unfortunately, we couldn't stay for long, as we were way behind our schedule. We said our goodbyes and exchanged some gifts before we set off. Our goal for the first day was Camp Wood, and on the way we rode the dangerous but very funny road SH337. We stopped in Leaky, where we had a good meal at Gypsy Sally's and really took in the atmosphere of a Texan rural saloon. Quite late at night, we arrived at the motel in Camp Wood and fell asleep almost instantly.